I now warmly welcome Claudio Canales. Claudio Canales is Risk Communication Advisor of the Chilean Agency for Food Safety and Quality. Besides, he's also Creative Advisor of the BFR and creator of the Trust Generation model in risk communication. He has 19 years of experience in the development of communication strategies in the public sector related to agri-food and public health policies. Claudio Canales himself says that he loves to create new ways to communicate risks and support science education using all the elements that feed our memory: music, art, humor, games, literature, and more. Supporting and creating new tools for risk communication anywhere in the world is not only a wonderful challenge to him, but also one of his passions. We are very pleased to have you here. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's good to be nervous because when you are nervous, you feel more energy. And I'm really glad to be here again. I appreciate so much the BFR colleagues and BFR friends to invite me to this day. Okay, I want to start my presentation with some exercise with you. Please, this is about perception. Can you just watch the black point in the middle of the picture, please, for 20 seconds, okay? Just what's the black point? After that, I'm gonna change the picture. And you can see another picture, and after that you have to blink, okay? Just 20 seconds, for 20 seconds. Now you can blink. Did you see the difference? Can you see the colors? And now it's white, black. Yeah, this is about perception, no? This phenomenon called chromatic adaptation is the ability of the human eye to adapt to change in lighting, no? This is in order to preserve the appearance and colors of an object. Sometimes we can see things, but these things are different. But we need it's important when you see things, maybe all the time it's not the same. It's not the reality, you know? We cannot be sure of reality, and it always depends on how we look at it, no? This, it's in social networks, it's similar, you know? We believe, we feel that it's true, the information, but it all has to do with our abilities and limitations to understand reality. Even when we talk about information, or when some information sent to us from the social network, looks like true, but not all the time. How we can do something with this information? Well, the idea of the risk communication in this field is try to send another messages to complete the information, and the people can take decisions, because risk is about decisions. Okay, and now I really like to play with the memories, you know, okay? What was happening in the world 20 years ago? In Latin America, we have a kind of style of music called tango. You know tango? Yeah, we have a really famous tango in Latin America. It's from Argentina. I said, 20 years is nothing. 20 años no es nada. Yeah, and this 20 years, maybe in a geological way, is nothing, no? But in our life, it's so much. Why? Because the memories are so important in that time. Well, you know, in 2002, 12 of 50 countries of the European Union, euro banknotes and coins are put into circulation in that time. The new euro coins cause allergies among to the population for the nickel in the coins in that time. Maybe some people here remember that, no? Or not. You are so young, maybe. Yeah? Some people maybe remember that. The Nokia 6610 was the sensation in that time. You know, maybe Mr. Hensel called his friend in that time with this Nokia, and I said, I'm the new president of the new BFR. You know, 20 years ago, Coldplay, you know Coldplay, released their acclaimed A Rush of Love to the Head, with so many songs that now are classic songs, like The Scientist. You remember that song? Come on, I need you, tell you I'm sorry. Okay. This song is part of this album, 20 years ago. And Asereje, from the group Las Ketchup, becomes a worldwide success 20 years ago. Do you remember that song? Huh? It's from the song is so interesting thing because so many people said, what means Asereje, means nothing. Because the guy who composed the song, they don't understand English, and they like so much a song from Sugar Hill Gang. It's I said hip, hop, the head to the hip. Yeah, and the guy, they understand, and I said, okay, I composed this with this. Sounds like English, but it's not like that. Okay, 20 years ago, most of our memories are located in the space of emotions. Maybe if you remember all of these things, something in your emotion happened, you know? 20 years have passed and almost all of us remember kind of these events, no? Emotion plus feelings equal memories, no? Okay, if these elements produce emotions, feelings, and pleasant memories, why not use them as material for risk communication? It's really important because it's part of our life, you know? All of these elements is part of the emotions, and maybe it's good for to use like as a resource. We cannot wait for a crisis to generate information exchange between experts, officials, and citizens. We have to do it before, in a preventive, educational, and even entertaining way, because we learn when we have a good or a fun time, a funny time, we learn as well. An important space to do this is in a social network, because people are there. No? Maybe you don't like so much social networks. Even for me, actually, I don't like so much, but it's part of my field. You know, I need to be there with information because it's important to be there because the people is there. Social networks can be a space to start building trust, but it depends so much on how we do it, because everyone knows how the social network works. No. A first step to do this is to know how social networks work, even with the good, the bad, and the ugly that social networks have, because not all the time is so nice, no? In social networks, we have three elements that the people share all the time. Ethical and moral appreciation, so much. Social discontent, and humor. Maybe you can say, yeah, but some information, some news, yeah, but all the time it's in this kind of topics, you know, ethical, social, and humor. Well, maybe we can use some of this element to disseminate our messages. Social networks affect to the perception of risk all the time. Even Zygmunt Bauman talked about this before than I think that maybe 10 years ago. The internet that was originally promote under the idea of the connect us with others, but sometimes they don't happen, Because everyone, when we are in a WhatsApp or in another kind of social networks, they are not to see so much around. They see just a bubbles. Even Bauman said it's a echo chambers, where all the time we are in the same space. Even there is some studies about this. Paul Resnick from the Michigan University, they study this idea of the filters of the information. For example, if you took LinkedIn or another, or Facebook or Twitter, sometimes you feel, you see there the same information. They don't change your opinion so much, because it's kind of a bubble, they said, And sometimes this is a barrier to generate more knowledge. The amount of information that circulates sometimes it's impossible to manage, And the availability of a huge amount of information makes it difficult to detect what is the best quality of the information. And many times depends on the degree of indignation or outrage. It produces more or less meaning in the recipient and can build their opinion. This is part of the social network world. What can we do with that? Because it looks so much funny, Create community through the elements that make up the perception. What is the elements of the perception? We can resume in three concepts: what we know, what we feel, and what we value. The perception forms for these elements. And I show you some example of that. We create this band, called Los Frutantes. But we use the elements of the perception to create Frutantes because reminds me characters, reminds me the music is important in my life, and maybe we can use all of these resources to disseminate messages about food safety, healthy food. But how this work? Well, Los Frutantes is a communication strategy based off elements of perception. What is these elements? What we know? We know famous musicians. Even the name of the characters of the band remind some musicians, John Lemon, and or another characters, Jack Sparrow, asparagus in Spanish is Sparago. We are using elements that is in the environment to create that. What we feel, music take us to another moment of our life, generally pleasant moments. Everyone knows some music, and maybe even my mom, when she heard some I don't know, rock and roll, and said, "Oh, this music is for my time," and her eyes changing. Maybe it's a good moment, sometimes. And what we value, we started talking about healthy eating, because it was something that already had a value in our society, unlike food safety. For that reason, we started with healthy food, because everyone have a value for that. Even in Chile, not so much people know about food safety, but we started with healthy food, with these songs, because the idea is now, with a community, to talk about scientists, antimicrobial resistant pesticide, all of these things. Because now we have the community for that. Okay, we create content mixing past, present, and future. And now we have a different account, different social network for Frutantes, because Frutantes have a own life. We created in the Chilean Food Safety Agency, but now it's a band. Now, even today, in this moment, they are in a school in the south of Chile. They're playing and they talk with the kids about these topics. We have a lot of a community today, It's another followers, different than Chilean Food Safety Agency, but everyone recognizes that the content of the frutantes is come from the scientific information. Creating educational content based on user interest and perception helps build trust all the time. To do so, it's important to stimulate creativity and to develop communication strategies. But what is creativity? Creativity is copy, combine, and transform, but not copy the intellectual rights of another people. For example, your cell phone, it's a part of creativity. All of these things inside on your cell phone already exist. You know, email, phone calls, and camera. But now it's just in a one device. You know, this is a novelty of the cell phone. You know, copy, combine, and transform all the time. When we are talking about creativity, we are talking about how I can to make some associations that maybe are not so logical sometimes. And we can stimulate that. Well, creativity process, this is a sentence from Edward de Bono, it's a psychology from Malta. And I said, among the common coincidence of the mental operations of the creative process, we distinguish memory, perception, the ability to associate ideas, data processing, analogies, and another psychological aspects such intuition, emotions, and feelings. All of these elements form a part of the perception, and it's important to use when we can create some communication strategies, because maybe they enter for the imagination, for the fantasy. So many of your memories are in your brain for the imagination, for the fantasies. But this is not about that we don't need the official communication or the most traditional communication. We need it. Even the idea is to have this information, but we have a challenge with as communicators to transform all of this content in this part, the part of the fantasy, imagination, because maybe we can help with that. Okay, how we can use creativity in risk communication? If we think of situations or elements that people recognize and associate them with elements linked to risk situations, then we want to communicate. We can begin to develop new, entertaining, and useful content for audiences. Yeah, maybe we are doing so many things for kids, but it's an excuse. It's for kids, but always it's for your kid inside of you. Everyone's, even when you are in a recital, when you went to a concert, you are a kid in that moment. You excited with the songs, with the lyrics. Sometimes we transform again in kids all the time. Another example of our work, comics with this, because the comics is part of our life sometimes. We create some characters to talk about antimicrobial resistance in this time. And even we use memes, because the memes is the new language. Even I think that maybe it's not just, it's all to use memes today. Yeah, but we started with memes, you know, because it's part of our language today. And we are working with VFR in this project with the characters, and it's a really interesting project. I need to say thanks to Vivke. Vivke is there. Vivke, hi. And Anya Conrad. We work in this all of this time in the pandemic. I was in Chile. People is here. We don't talk the same language because we communicate in English, but this is not my language. And it's really challenging, but it's really nice. It's so nice. And we create some storybooks of food safety because for the kids and even for the people, the old things are new things. you know? Because today it's so common to have video games. Yeah? But for the kids today, it's so novel to see how we play it in the past. You know? For that reason, it's so nice to do that. Even with cards or with another kind of elements, it's so novel for the kids. Even we create a book for elderly people, for cognitive exercise for elderly people related to food safety as well. This happened in the pandemic because there are so many elderly people, so many adult people are so isolated in some moment, and we said maybe we can create this because it's part of to be present in our life. Because when you are talking about trust, you are talking about presence, how you can to be present in the life of the people. And this is our results in the social networks of Achipia. Yeah, we separate Achipia from Frutantes, but if you can join the followers, it's so much community. It's a community. Now, with this community, we can share information about, for example, an alert, some information about recall or outbreak. Now, these people can follow us, they trust in us, and maybe they can share information for another people. We don't have so much money, or we don't have money to pay in the social networks. This is the numbers, and it's a real followers. It's part of Achipia. Achipia is just 20 persons. Our agency is so small there. Okay. And for us, risk communication, day by day, it's important because it's good when you have a crisis. The zero risk doesn't exist. It's not possible. But we can to reduce that if we separate the idea of the strategies of risk communication. In a preventive educational communication for critical thinking, after that communication for consensus, involving to the people that, and we are in a crisis or emergency, maybe we can contribute for the people understand of responsibilities. This is the idea. For that reason, we use the humor on the music, on art. Yeah, it's a good time, but it's serious in the bottom. It's so serious. Okay. The conclusion of this, everything that happened in the world and has happened to us in our life is a wonderful, really wonderful resource for the development of content on social networks. If you see social networks today, so many memories are part of the content. Bringing this closer to risk communication is the great challenge for to generate trust all the time. But it's a really nice challenge. And it's possible to do this stimulating creativity in the teams. Everyone is so creative. I swear, everyone. In social networks, the interactivity is the clue. It is possible to summarize in the following: immediacy, personalization, expansion, non-linearity, and participation. Through these resources, we can make a contribution to the necessary risk literacy, and we can advance in that. And do not forget, the creativity also has a method. It's not just inspiration. We can training all the time that. And even these guys, I don't know if you know these guys, Paul McCartney and John Lennon. Everyone said, oh, it's so creative, but they have a method to do these things. If you don't believe, contact me, please. Thank you to everyone, even thank you to these people, because there are so many helpful to do all of these things. And it's really nice to be here with you. Muchas gracias a todos y a todas.